name is Melusi Twala. I'm from the Academy of Science of South Africa. It is really my pleasure today to be your program director and to welcome you to this webinar, which is a joint partnership between the Department of Science and Innovation in South Africa, as well as the Academy of Science of South Africa. We thank you for joining. We thank you for taking your time really to be part of this event, where we really hope it will be an engaging and exciting event. So ASSAf is the official National Science Academy in South Africa, and part of its mandate is to bring together top scientific experts, government, business, as well as larger society on national priorities where evidence-based science has a role to play. Additionally, we showcase scholarly excellence across all scientific disciplines. And also an important function that we execute as the Academy is to facilitate partnerships and collaborations within the confines of science, technology, and innovation. Now, within the National System of Innovation, the youth is a key role player. Hence, ASSAf activities and programs are highly inclusive of the youth. So in June, as we celebrate Youth Month in South Africa, ASSAf and the DSI have partnered to host this webinar to showcase the youth involvement in advancing South Africa's science, technology, and innovation objectives at an international stage. Whilst today we'll showcase these brilliant early career scientists, the emphasis really is to reflect on these scholars, how they contribute to their scientific expertise in advancing South Africa's socio-economic development in the context of Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Finally, we seek to draw insights from their individual journeys into how, as the country, we can strengthen what we offer the world in terms of science, technology, and innovation, and also how we utilize international collaborations and opportunities to advance the country's development agenda. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome welcoming remarks from Professor Himla Sudial, who's the Executive Officer at ASSAf. But in addition to that, she's also someone who's really played a big role in showcasing what South Africa can offer in terms of sciences, particularly from her domain of population genetics. Himla, over to you, and thank you.
Thanks, Melusi. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this webinar. I mean, it is timely that we should host a webinar of this nature on the occasion of celebrating the Youth Month. It's a little bit late, but better late than never. I am aware that there have been many activities around the country where ASSAf has participated, but it is indeed a pleasure for us to host this webinar, particularly as we come almost to the end of celebrating the International Year for Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development. With the theme of this meeting being sustainable development, it is gratifying to note how much of activity is focused in various institutions, including, of course, our own young academy, the SAIS, the South African Young Academy of Science, who have led from the front in positioning basic sciences with respect to the advancement of sustainable development. I know that our participants who are going to enthrall us with their insights today have quite a grand outreach in terms of health and other activities. And I'm really, really looking forward to hearing their contributions around this theme. In fact, as Melusi has mentioned, ASSAf prides itself in the advancement of science, technology, innovation in association and conjunction with the social sciences and humanities. At ASSAf, we take science in the collective way of embracing all scientific disciplines. And so while we may have a bit of an angle towards health today, I am sure that the focus of health is based on an infrastructure of advancing the needs of our society. So colleagues, I welcome you to this session, and do participate in the lively discussion that would follow, as would be chaired by my colleague Melusi. And thank you very much for giving your time to participate as speakers as well as participants. Thank you so much. Thanks, Melusi.
Thanks a lot, Himla, for kickstarting, our event, and thanks for giving those welcoming remarks. We will really now steam ahead with our agenda, but Tozama, if you can confirm, I do not see Mr. Ndolani from the DSI. I do not know if maybe there is a colleague of Ndolani who's on board who's been tasked with giving those remarks. But Tozama, if you do not have any update, I'll recommend that we continue. Then Mr. Ndolani will actually give remarks when he joins. We'll see how that will roll ahead. It is really exciting for me today to be part of this webinar. Recently, there's been many discussions around what is the limit in defining one as an early career scientist or as youth. And it seems that with the discussion expanding more and more, the consensus is really that you're as young as you feel. As long as you're a practitioner in science, technology, and innovation, you can define yourself as young as you feel. So this is really an event that is focusing on the youth. Himla has outlined that really our focus on ASSAf activities is to really involve the youth to provide the platform of that voice from the early career scientists, and that is what we are doing today with excitement. Now we've got a moderator who will actually be taking us through the panel today. That is Dr. Braunine Kutsie, who is a psychologist in the field of health psychology and mental health. She focuses on factors that influence treatment adherence amongst children, adolescents, and adults living with HIV. Additionally, her research concerns prevention and early intervention measures to psychological well-being of children and adolescents. She's a senior lecturer at Stellenbosch University and also a rated researcher by the National Research Foundation of South Africa. She is a member of the South African Young Academy of Science, that is SAYAS. She's also an executive member of the Psychological Society of South Africa, and she has been awarded the Emerging Researcher Award by the Human Sciences Research Council, as well as ASSAf for social sciences. So with that note, Dr. Braunine, now the platform is yours. If you can take over and steer us through what will hopefully be an exciting discussion. Over to you, Braunine.
Thank you, Dr. Twala, and good afternoon, colleagues, and to our presenters this afternoon. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to be able to moderate the session this afternoon, and I'm very much looking forward to our presentations by our three wonderful speakers. So to organize this afternoon's session, I would like to introduce the speakers one at a time, so before their presentations will happen. And I'll do so by providing some information as to who the speaker is. So I'll provide some of the narrative from their bios that they sent us, which is absolutely incredible. And then I'll hand over to that respective speaker, who will then provide us with a 10-minute presentation related to the topic of this afternoon's webinar. I'll then hand over to the second speaker and then the third speaker in a similar fashion. Once each of our speakers have presented, I would like to then enter into a discussion with the speakers, and I have a couple of questions that have been prepared that I'd like to pose and that I would pose at random to our speakers to get a discussion going. And then I in no way want to hog the show completely. So I would also then ask all of you who are joining us this afternoon to please, as the presenters are presenting, please pop your questions into the comment, and we will have a look at those throughout the discussion session as well, and to bring in the voices of our audience members here this afternoon. So, colleagues, without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to our very first speaker, who is Dr. Lerato Mpie. And Dr. Mpie is a researcher at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto, Canada. And so since 2021, she's been an adjunct postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Toronto. And her research focuses on developing antiviral assays for respiratory pathogens through integration of protein chemistry, molecular medicine, pharmacogenomics, and bioinformatics. Previously, she was a research scientist at Mintech, preceded by 3 postdoctoral fellowships at UCT, UNISA, and WITS between 2015 and 2020. She's a Golden Key Awardee and the Mail and Guardian's, one of the Mail and Guardian's 200 Young Influential South Africans. Dr. Mpie has an excellent and a growing record of scientific publications and book chapters as well, and has secured a number of international research grants. Her commitment to excellence in teaching has also been demonstrated through her tutoring, her lecturing, her mentoring, and co-supervision of postgraduate students, in addition to her work with undergraduate students. She possesses a strong demonstrated record of service to the research community through her active participation in advisory committees, and service as an expert panelist on many peer review committees. And she aims to lead and sustain innovative research in an equitable and inclusive environment that will advance the global frontiers of knowledge in biomedical research. So, Dr. Mpie, I would like to hand over to you if you would like to share your screen with us, and then I can confirm that we can all see it and hand over to you for 10 minutes.
Hi, Browning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and see you.
Okay, I thought you were going to project the screen. I had sent the presentation to Melusi.
That's no problem at all. I believe Tuzama has it on standby for us, so I will ask Tuzama to share it on your behalf.
I'm sharing now, colleagues. I'm just opening it now, Lerato. Oops, sorry, I'm just opening. So is this Dr. Lehutsu? I just wanted to confirm that. I'm opening the correct one.
Dr. Mpie.
Mpie, oh, okay, sorry. Is it showing from your end? I've shared it.
We can see the screen and all of the slides.
Okay,
so
okay,
we
let
can
me just go to slideshow from the beginning. Is that fine?
Perfect.
That's superb.
Thank you, Dr. Mpie. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the host for having us here and allowing us an opportunity to share the work that we have been doing. As Browning has mouthfully said, I am a South African-born scientist and lived in South Africa almost all my life, and just relocated a few months ago, almost 2 years exactly now. And I am based at Sunnybrook Hospital, which is in the province of Ontario in Toronto, being the city. I am currently a researcher in Sunnybrook Hospital, and our work is focused on infectious diseases. And what I would like to share with you today is how we as South African scientists are making a mark on this international stage with the knowledge and the teachings that we have gained from South Africa, and hopefully inspire someone to also go global and showcase the skill that South Africa has to offer. And first of all, I thought I should share with you what is biomedical science, because I'm not sure who the audience is and how advanced the knowledge is here on the background. But I heard during the introduction, they said we have all sorts of scientists, from social scientists, humanities, and all of that. So I thought it a good idea if I just show a little bit more about what biomedical science is. I'm a trained biochemist. I obtained my master's in protein biochemistry, and that was followed by a PhD in biomedical science. And what biomedical science is really is a field of science which incorporates biology and medical laboratory sciences. And most of this work is done to advance medical knowledge, which we do through research and through integration of different disciplines. As a medical scientist, we bring together biology, we bring together biochemistry, we bring together hematology and all those other fields of science in order to answer these questions that are troubling our world. And we play a crucial role in advancing medical knowledge by firstly trying to understand the biological processes and developing new treatment and cures for diseases. We work in labs, we work in hospitals, we work in universities and various healthcare institutions. As I said, I work both at Sunnybrook Hospital and at the University of Toronto. And we conduct research in laboratories using models. By models, I mean, we try and understand these biological processes that we are investigating in living organisms, such as cell lines, such as mice, rats, flies, monkeys. And when we go to trials, we would include monkeys, and at the end of the day, we would have human trials. And we don't just use living organisms, we also use artificial intelligence. That is where we use computer simulations, and that coupled with some bioinformatics, then we can solve these problems. And in so doing, we try and find answers that will lead us to developing new therapeutic drugs and new strategies to manage diseases and outbreaks, like recently with coronavirus, which had affected the whole world. Biomedical scientists were at work trying to see what could work, how drugs could be repurposed, and how we could solve the pandemic. So after all of that is done, after all the research, we gather the data, we analyze it, we analyze those findings and interpret them so that we can share those with the colleagues, both the scientists and the clinicians or our healthcare professionals, and eventually share those with our policymakers in order to advance the knowledge and make sure that the findings are implemented and benefit the majority of the people. And currently I work in an infectious disease lab. And what I do is I work on antiviral assay development. We currently working on various respiratory tract pathogens, and this include parainfluenza virus, seasonal coronaviruses, and monkeypox. The former two being the ones that are implicated mostly in our seasonal flu outbreak. And what we're trying to do is, since there is no vaccine currently or cure for those, we are working on repurposing some of the drugs, especially ones that have been approved for COVID recently, and see if those cannot be used to treat or actually even prevent, use them as vaccine for the seasonal coronaviruses and para-influenza virus. And my lab applies all this biomedical knowledge in collaborations with other labs, and we solving all this. And as I mentioned, all this knowledge I gained from South Africa. Coming to Canada, I did not get any training at all in this. I went to work the first week and I was sent directly to the lab to just do what I was hired for. And I can say I did not disappoint. So I represented South Africa so well in that. And secondly, what I do bioinformatics, which is what I came here for initially. Being a molecular biologist with biochemistry background, I figured that at the end of the day, for my data analysis, I use a whole lot of bioinformatics. And since I was not trained as a computer scientist, I needed to make sure that I can process my data from A to Z. So I learned bioinformatics, and with that, I joined a group and I was given a project on epigenetic data analysis. And I'm proud to say that we've actually published a paper on that. And I have acquired some great bioinformatics skills, which I am currently applying also to my current biomedical research in order to solve these problems. And lastly, I would like to say that we as South African scientists based everywhere, be it in South Africa or internationally, we have immensely contributed to human capital development in the space of science, technology, and innovation. We have greatly contributed to policy advocacy and have made a social impact in the world. We look at how the Omicron was discovered in South Africa and how that information has been shared with the world, and how now labs across the world are using that information to advance their knowledge, to come up with drugs, and just teaching about Omicron and the coronavirus in its entirety. So in conclusion, I would like to remind every fellow South African, wherever we may be, that we need to be active participants in the science, technology, and innovation sector, since this is vital for our country's globalization effort. And by nurturing young talents, providing educational opportunities, fostering innovation and entrepreneurship, and encouraging international collaboration, South Africa can leverage its youth demographic dividend and become a leading player in the global sciences, technology, and innovation landscape. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mpie, and also for sticking to time and for giving us a wonderful overview of sort of the biomedical field that you work in and the specific research that you do, and also what it was like for you initially when you went over to the labs and you had to sort of find your way towards where you are now and what you're able to do. So thank you so much, Dr. Mpie, and we'll get back to you in a short while for the discussion session. Colleagues, our next speaker this afternoon is Dr. Raisibe Lehutso, a senior research scientist currently affiliated with the Council of Science and Industrial Research here in South Africa. At the moment, she's on research deployment at the University of Vienna in Austria, where she serves as a postdoctoral associate. Dr. Lehutso's research activities focus on establishing the risk of contaminants of emerging concerns, and her expertise and dedication have been demonstrated through her co-authorship of many peer-reviewed articles published in high-impact factor journals. She's had the privilege of presenting her findings at local and international conferences, and where she has been able to showcase the impact and influence of her work, especially as an early career researcher. She's acquired competitive research grants and plays an important role in mentoring and co-supervising master's and doctoral students. Her guidance and support is instrumental in nurturing the next generation of scientists, further enhancing her reputation as an esteemed young academic in the field. Dr. Lehuzo, I can see you there. Welcome to the session this afternoon. Can we just check your microphone again?
Can you hear me?
100%, I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you need us to share the slides on your behalf, or have you got
No,
them?
I will project from my side.
Perfect, thank you.
Please give me the heads up once the screen is projecting.
It is projecting, thank you. We can see all of your slides at this stage still.
Is it in presentation mode now?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. And over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and the organizers for the invitation, and of course the audience for attending this webinar. I need to minimize the screen. My talk today will focus on water pollution and the associated risk in aquatic environment. I will start my presentation by posing a question of what are the effects of anthropogenic activities in the aquatic environment. And that is a question that I have been trying to respond to since I joined the field of environmental analytical chemistry a few years back. And today I will share a bit of the results from such studies and then also give a brief of what I am currently involved in here at the University of Vienna. So to start off my presentation, well, it is an open secret that global aquatic environments are contaminated with anthropogenic pollutants, and there are different types of these pollutants, and not limited to. They include your engineered nanomaterials, your antibiotics, your microplastic, and pharmaceuticals. So coming to the South African sphere, we ask the question of what is the extent of the pollution and what are their sources, impact, and risk. And I will share some of the results that I took, that we got when I was still based in South Africa. Myself and colleagues, we embarked on investigating the occurrence and the characteristics of these pollutants in the aquatic environment. And we found that there are indeed anthropogenic pollutants in the aquatic system, and they ranged from your pharmaceuticals and your personal care product to the clothing material. We detected this pollutant at varying concentration and the physicochemical properties. We further linked this pollutant to their sources. Unfortunately, the conventional treatment plants are not equipped to fully remove this pollutant, and they end up in the aquatic system where they compromise the integrity of the quality of water. In addition to compromising the integrity of the quality of water, they may pose harmful effects onto the aquatic environment, onto the aquatic species. We investigated these effects on various aquatic organisms, and we found that some of these pollutants induce adverse effects on the aquatic system, while others do not induce the effect. Using the information we obtained from exposure studies and toxicity effects, we were able to establish the risk profile of some of these pollutants. And we found that the profile varies from some of the contaminants not inducing any imminent risk, while others inducing risk that requires mitigation. The information from this risk profile is basically important towards the water management and also for regulation and policies. Implementation of such regulation and policies is important towards the water quality, whereby compliances will ensure that the quality of water is within the acceptable range. This is important towards the sustainability of the socioeconomic development. Unfortunately, it does not end there. In recent years, there has been improvement in technologies and innovations. Unfortunately, these technologies introduces a new species, introduces new contaminants that are of emerging concerns. One then would ask question, what are these contaminants and what is their status into the aquatic environment? Well, different studies have been undertaken to investigate these pollutants in the aquatic environment. However, data arising from such studies is incomparable, mostly because the method they use to investigate this pollutant, number one, is not suitable for this new class of material. And number two, they investigated these contaminants using different scenarios. And that is because of lack of methods to lack of standardized method to investigate this pollutant. The lack of methods is not only limited to South Africa, but is a global issue where there are no standardized method. And this brings me to my current work here at the University of Vienna, whereby I am involved in developing the standardized method for global adoption by the OECD. What I am involved in, I am simulating the environmental conditions in the lab as shown in these figures, and we try to come up with methods that would be adopted and can be used to analyze these contaminants under conditions that simulate the environmental conditions. This work, I cannot share the results of this work due to the NDA that has been signed. However, like any other legalized OECD document, they will be published in the near future. So one would ask, why is it important for us to develop this method for global standardization? Well, without the method, we would not know the true stand of this new pollutant. Then that information, the missing link between the information would then cause would hamper efforts toward establishing water management. And then without having a good water management control, then that would compromise the quality of water, which will then link towards not being able to sustainably have the socio-economic development of the water sphere. I would like to end my presentation with the slogan that says, water is life. Before I conclude, I would like to thank the funders and colleagues and collaborators that have been supportive towards my entire career. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Chair, you are on mute.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Lehutso, and thank you for taking us through your presentation and for giving us a sense of the work that you have done and that you're currently doing. Very, very interesting what you're busy with, even though you're unable to share some of the results at this stage. We look forward to seeing it in the future. So as with the previous speaker, we will enter into a discussion after our last speaker. And so, colleagues, this afternoon, our last speaker is Dr. Gabriella Kromhout, who is a medical doctor from South Africa and currently working in pediatric HIV research in KwaZulu-Natal with a particular focus and interest in HIV cure and TB-HIV treatment research. Dr. Kromhout has a wealth of experience in of working in the South African healthcare system, from deep rural to tertiary and urban settings, with a focus on infectious diseases in adults and in children. She completed her medical training at Stellenbosch and has been working for the past 5 years in state healthcare. She then completed her Master of Science in Tropical Medicine at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where she further developed her interest in and understanding of infectious diseases research and global health. So she's currently enrolled as a PhD candidate at UKZN, where she works, where her work involves a combination of clinical and academic research in addition to clinical coordination of the field of pediatric HIV. And she's passionate about the power of research and global health interventions in the treatment and potential cure of infectious diseases, particularly within the context of the HIV epidemic in sub-Saharan South Africa. So Dr. Kromer, thank you for being here this afternoon, and we look forward to hearing from you. Would you like us to share your slides on your behalf, or have you got them?
Thank you, Bronwyn. No, I think I will share it myself. Just give me a second to do that. Okay, let me know if you are able to see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, just give it a sec to register. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you to ASSAf for inviting me to speak. And it is such a privilege to be amongst the speakers today. And I'm hoping that I can share a little bit of what I do in terms of my job. So as Bronwyn spoke about, I am a medical doctor. I trained at Stellenbosch University, and then have worked in both rural KZN and rural Eastern Cape in the healthcare sector. And following 5 years of clinical work, I embarked on pursuing my master's degree at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in London. And this really opened my eyes to the importance of research in a global health context. And bringing that together with my experience and passion in working with infectious diseases brought me to my current job, which is the clinical coordinator and research clinician on 2 pediatric HIV studies in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as being a PhD student at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. So going into exactly what the focus of my work is and a little bit of the context thereof. So according to the Sustainable Development Goal 3, we are hoping to have good health and well-being for all. And my particular area of work focuses on target 3.3, which is written in my slides. And most of mine focuses on ending the epidemics of HIV and AIDS, as well as TB. And this fits in as well with the UNAIDS 95-95-95 targets, which for those of you who don't know, means 95% of people who are HIV positive know that they are positive. Of those, 95% are on combination antiretroviral therapy. And of those on therapy, 95% are suppressed on treatment. So anyone who has spent any time in South Africa will know that we have a very big problem with our HIV epidemic. And South Africa itself has the highest absolute number of people living with HIV globally, and KZN is the worst affected province in this regard. Children specifically are still a large portion of people living with HIV, and what it means for children is they literally have a lifetime of treatment ahead of them. They need to navigate the difficult time of adolescence while coming to terms with what it means to live with HIV at the same time. And so it's incredibly important to ensure treatment optimization from a healthcare point of view. And we need to make sure as well that cure research remains a priority. So my work currently is in 2 pediatric HIV studies. The one is the Ucwaningo Lwabantwana study, and the other is the ORCID study. So the Ucwaningo Lwabantwana study, this means learning from children. This is a collaborative study between Oxford University and the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And we have this incredible cohort of children living with HIV who were infected in utero. So they were infected prior to being born or during the birth process. And we currently have 284 mother-child pairs, so mom and baby are living with HIV. And these children are followed up from day 21 or earlier onwards for the rest of their lives. To be part of our study, they need to have been started on ARVs by day 21 of life. And the reason that we started this whole project was based on the case of the Mississippi baby. And for those of you who don't know the story of the Mississippi baby, it is a famous case in medicine, and specifically in HIV medicine, where a child based in Mississippi was started on ARVs shortly after birth and was suppressed on treatment and then went missing for socioeconomic reasons and didn't receive treatment, and finally returned back to care and was found to be testing negative and virologically suppressed, so a viral load lower than detectable, despite not having been on treatment for 2 years. And this child remained suppressed for 2 years, and then after the 2 years rebounded. But this child has been the topic of many conversations and many hypotheses over the years, because it is a unique case and possibly points us in certain directions regarding where we can look in terms of implementing cure strategies. So because KZN has such a high prevalence of HIV and such a high incidence of mother-to-child transmission, we created this cohort that looks at the potential mechanisms for HIV cure in children, and whether early antiretroviral therapy can have an impact on this. The second study that I work on is called the ORCHID study, and this is based under CAPRISA in Durban. And this particular study looks at children and adolescents with HIV and TB co-infection. And basically, it assesses the effect of the TB medication on the ARV drug levels in children of certain weights. So for those of you who know what pharmacokinetics are, this is a PK or a pharmacokinetic study. So we are currently completing the weight band study of children between the weights of 20 and 35 kilograms. And the reason that this is so important is because most studies regarding specifically medication are done in adults or very small groups of children or adolescents. And despite what many people think, children are in fact not little adults, and their bodies behave completely differently. So making sure that the dosages of these combined medications are correct for these particular weight bands in children is incredibly important, and can mean that if changes need to be made, that can lead to changes in the dosing guidelines internationally. So it's also very important work. So just to reiterate, there's clearly a very big importance of HIV cure and treatment research. So as I just mentioned, children are not little adults. They are unique in terms of how their bodies and immune system works. They are a key and vulnerable population, and they offer, because of their unique aspects, they offer unique opportunities for cure, which need to be explored. Obviously, there are a lot of issues around children and adolescents living with HIV due to disclosure issues and adherence difficulties, especially in adolescents who are grappling with their status. But it also allows us to explore novel ways of treating these children. So within these studies, we are hoping to help in reaching the 95, 95, 95 UNAIDS targets, and thereby ensuring health and well-being for these particular children living with HIV, and hopefully the greater population of people living with HIV, through our research into HIV treatment and HIV cure. And I would just like to thank everyone for your attention. And I hope that the snippet into some of my work has been interesting for you, and I welcome any questions during the discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kromhout, and for sharing with us the very interesting work that you're currently busy with. And yeah, on behalf of everyone here, wishing you all the best with that. So thank you to all our speakers also for putting their cameras on for this next session. which I would like to engage or enter into sort of a discussion really focused on this idea of internationalization of our young South African scientists and your experiences around that. So this next session is timed to be, and we're perfectly on time, so thank you to each of you, to be around half an hour or so, and I will engage with you in discussions, let's say for about 15 minutes, where I would also like to actually ask the audience to put some comments in the question box for us. And if you would like to pose a question, in addition to making a comment, please let us know. And so we can sort of have this collaborative engagement between ourselves and the audience. So 10 minutes is never enough time to get really into some of the details around what these international experiences are like and how they come about, and who has been key in initiating some of these experiences, of course, apart from yourselves. So I wanted as a way to just start off the discussion, and perhaps Dr. Mpie, because you went first, I can pose this first question to you, but maybe you can take us through a little bit of a brief history around what your international collaboration experience has been. Perhaps it's been through studies. At the moment, it's through your work and through your research. Just sort of generally, what has been your experience of collaborating internationally? On the one hand, initiating these collaborations, and then on the other hand, when you're there, what it's been like fostering those collaborations even more.
Thank you once again, Bronwyn. With me personally, my journey has been a bit different, since I could say I have been the main key role player, in a sense that for me to go international, I had been in South Africa all my life, and I felt like I needed an out-of-home experience. I needed to see these labs, which we always referring to in our labs in South Africa. What kind of facilities do they have? How different are they from what we have? And when I was doing my first postdoc at UCT, in one of the info mailers, I received an invitation. I saw an invitation by one professor at the University of Toronto in anthropological genetics. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. This is something that I could work on, because I've got biochemistry background, I've got some genetics background, and I was in the pharmacogenomics space at the time. And I thought, let me write to this professor and find out if we could collaborate and establish a partnership in this. I emailed the professor, and fortunately, he responded the same day. This was after I had contacted other people elsewhere with like a mini introduction and expressed my interest and all that. And as most of you know, they would never respond. If you are lucky, the one would say, oh yeah, we'll work on it, we'll look into it later, but it ends there. So this one time, it was quite fortunate, I could say, like I was fortunate to get that response. And the professor said to me that at the moment, he was looking to expand and inviting postdocs from everywhere. He did not have money or a grant that was allocated for a particular project. He just wanted capable people to join his group. So we applied for a grant. That was the first thing that we did. We had several meetings and we drafted the application. Well, I drafted the application, we submitted it. That first one was a fail. We didn't get it. Then a few months later, he came back to me. He emailed me and said, the university has this opportunity that is opening up. I think we are ready for this. Just polish that previous proposal that we had submitted, and we're submitting it for this one. And indeed, we got that grant. And I actually came to Canada on the university and the Canadian government sponsored grant. And that is how I found myself here. And I was mostly motivated by trying to get out of comfort zone, because there was a time whereby I felt like I was being overlooked or underappreciated in South Africa. Then I also thought to myself, maybe I'm being like this because I'm becoming entitled because I'm at home. So let me go out there and play with the big role players. Let me see what other people are doing. Let me go compete with people based on merit and not want the advantage of being considered because I am home and I feel I deserve that opportunity. So let me go out there and fight for my space. And when that happened, I found myself here, and the first year was a bit of a challenge, mostly the weather, and me changing fields as well. I've been a molecular biochemist, a molecular biologist and a biochemist through and through. And coming here, my first project was in bioinformatics. So it was a bit of a challenge for me to now be doing computational biology every day, all day, no lab work, nothing of that nature. But my PI was quite supportive. He was there for us and got us people to mentor us as we were going. There were two of us. It was me and a guy from Brazil. So we managed to work on that, and early this year, we actually published a paper on the work that we have been doing since we got here. And well, towards the end of that first year, I contacted this professor at Sunnybrook. I was like, you know what? I need to go back to the lab. There's things that I need to do. I came here to see what people are doing. I came here to try and help solve the problems back at home. With computational biology, yes, I will do it. I will get to a certain degree, but I need to be hands-on. I wrote to this professor who was also kind enough to just make time to meet with me. And I told him what I want to do. I told him my background. And at the time I was like, oh, great. I actually have a project that we could work on, but I also would want you to work on your project. So let's first prioritize your project. And when you've made enough progress, we can work on my stuff too. So I was hired as a research associate, and I have been working in that lab. And so far, I have been making great strides, and I'm loving being here.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Mpie, for not only sharing the successes of those of the collaborative efforts, but also some of the initial failures and how it doesn't need to end there. And also for sharing your motivations, really, for wanting to reach out and why you thought it was important to try and collaborate internationally, and what that meant for you and yourself and your career and your progress. I thought that was those were excellent reasons. So thank you for that. Dr. Lehutso, perhaps you can give us a little bit of your own story, your own journey.
Okay. My international exposure started a bit early in my career for me. I first went to University of Stockholm for transfer skill while I was busy still doing my master's. I visited for like 2 months where I learned to use this cutting edge instrument and how to process sample. And then after that, I went back home and then I started my PhD. And again, during my PhD, I had the opportunity to go to Aix-Marseille, where I did part of my PhD there. And then after that, I went back home, obviously, to complete my studies. And after completing my studies, I got hired at the CSIR. And while I was there, I felt a bit unchallenged. Then I started looking for international opportunities. Then I saw a job and I was like, I've got the expertise and the skill to fill this position. I applied. I went through like 3 hectic interviews, and then the rest is history. Then I got here. Then my first month, I experienced some imposter syndrome. And then I had to have a pep talk that I did not get this far by connection. I am here because of merit, and it has been Smooth sailing. Okay, not smooth sailing, but it has been good. And I'm happy to say that today I actually presented my first deliverable to the OECD, and that went fine.
Amazing. So you've had quite a journey of being able to place yourself in different situations and really being triumphant, especially with sharing that anecdote about the imposter syndrome, which is, I wonder if that's something that really ever goes away. But absolutely, that's fascinating, Dr. Lutz. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Kromot, what has been your journey?
Okay, so mine is slightly different to my other presenters. So as we stated, I studied medicine in South Africa, and while I was going through my clinical rotations and my clinical years, in South Africa, we're very focused on the practical clinical side of medicine, which is incredibly important. But sometimes we don't necessarily think out of that when we're based in that field. And there was a part of me that was feeling a bit restless, and I took the opportunity to apply for a master's at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. And I was lucky enough to get a scholarship that covered my entire tuition and living expenses there, which was an incredible opportunity. And I can honestly say that being able to experience other parts of medicine apart from what I was used to was transformative for me. It garnered this passion for research and for global health that was underlying all along, but hadn't come to the fore because I'd been so focused on my clinical work. And what for me was so important was learning how things work in another country and taking on what I wanted to take on and leaving what I didn't, and building these networks that still serve to this day. It's so important. And I think as specifically as South Africans and scientists in South Africa, I think we undervalue what we can bring to the table. And I think as a woman as well, you know, I felt that I didn't always use my voice in science as I should. And this taught me to be more vocal, and that I actually did have something to say and something to contribute. And because of my passion for infectious diseases, KZN was the place to be. And, you know, having grown up in South Africa and grown up watching the adverts from Live Life and all of those NGOs around HIV, I kind of had this passion around treating HIV from that time. And so bringing my two worlds together of what I learned overseas with what I had learned as a clinician in South Africa was incredibly fulfilling for me. And so now I am in what I call a sort of Goldilocks position, where I get to do clinical work, which I absolutely love, but I also do the research and academic work. And I can see where we're going in terms of this research as well. And the wonderful part about this research is that it's also a collaboration between different international players as well. So that also allows me to network and to learn in incredible ways through just the people that I work with, and then also the people that I'm exposed to. So I'd just like to say that for those people who are listening and maybe kind of thinking, you know, maybe it's just safer to play it safe, don't play it safe. Just get out of your comfort zone, try the thing. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, that's fine. But if you manage to do it and you actually take that big step, you will find that you are way more fulfilled, and you can bring back home what you've learned and kind of mesh all the skills that you've learned along the way in such a beautiful way. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey and what I'd like to say in that regard.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. I see that there are two hands from two of our audience members, and I'm wondering if I should perhaps offer these audience members the opportunity to ask their question now, because it's probably related to this particular question. So I see the first hand there is Tru Masahela. If you could please unmute yourself and ask the question, and perhaps also indicate to whom you would like to address the question.
Greetings, Bronwyn. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is Tlu Masahela from Skukuza Kruger National Park. I've met my colleague here, Dr. Dumisani Koza. He's a freshwater ecologist here in the park, and he's got a question for Florence. So I'm just introducing him because we're sharing the laptop. So
Okay.
Hi, Florence. I've seen that you mentioned that you will be doing some simulations in your experiments. How are you going to mimic the different rivers? Because we know that different rivers, they are characterized by different environmental variables and the geologies and all those kind of stuff. And how are you going to put that together and say this is the model of how rivers should behave or something like that? Are you going to have categories, or you can clarify on that? And also looking, it is going to, I don't know how you're going to do it, but considering the scope of upstream apparatus and all those kind of stuff, so I'm just curious how you're going to do that. Thanks.
Dr. Luhuso, if you don't mind, if I can just interrupt for 1 second, would you mind if we parked this particular research-related question to then just before the end, so that we can, for now, just sort of stay on the topic of collaborations, and then I'll bring us back to our colleague's question. Is that all right with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. So I'll just make a note, and please help me to remember, Dr. Luhuso, if I do somehow forget, but we must get back to that question specific to your research. Colleagues, then if I can also, sort of to continue on the topic of collaboration, I think what has been, and internationalization, I think what has been sort of a key theme, if I may, from some of your responses really has been this feeling of being restless and unchallenged, and wanting to seek opportunities abroad to enhance yourself and where you are at currently in your career at that point, and then pushing yourself to collaborate internationally in that regard. And so as much as what I'm also hearing is that a lot of this has been own and self-initiative. Another seminar that was hosted earlier this month on the 15th of June was also around youth involvement and early career in sciences, and what are some of the important aspects around that. And certainly one of the things that came up was this idea of mentorship, and of the connections that we make. And I wonder if each of you might be willing to reflect on, in addition to the incredible work that you've done to create these opportunities for yourselves, what has been the experiences around mentorship, and also more broadly around institutional support to help facilitate some of these opportunities that you've had. So perhaps we can start with Dr. Kromhout first in this instance.
Okay. So I'm sorry, there are some construction works happening in the building that just started. So if there is some background noise, please excuse that. So for me, the mentorship is incredibly important. I think like the other speakers as well, a lot of my movement in terms of studying internationally was largely pushed by myself. However, once I got to the UK, I had incredibly supportive mentors who encouraged me to pursue my interests, and I think that their support and their acknowledgement of, someone having something to to contribute is so important. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a group of mentors, and they can fulfill different needs within your academic and personal lives. But they are so important to bounce ideas off of, get advice from, and sometimes just point you in the right direction. So for me, it's been incredibly important, and especially since my master's, having mentors in the UK and in South Africa at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where I have received incredible support from my mentors here. I cannot stress enough how important it's been for me. And I think before I go into too much more detail in that regard, I'm going to stop myself there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Dr. Lehutso, how about you?
It's actually important to have mentors, especially if you are exploring international space. For example, in the early exchange program that I took, my mentors were actually instrumental in ensuring that my travel was successful. Not only did they support me with the resources, but when I was away, they actually supported me on my well-being. I mean, being in a foreign country all along at that young age, if you don't have like a proper support, you can go a bit crazy. So it is important to have mentors and also keep in touch and be proactive in maintaining the relationship you have with your mentors. So
Yeah, that's so true. And some of the things that we may be more reluctant to speak about, just some of the, on the one hand, you're balancing the, the feelings around having opportunities abroad, but on the other hand, the very real reality of adjusting and adapting to new situations, and just, the tolls that may have. So thank you for including that aspect in your reflections. Dr. Mpie, how about you?
Yeah, it is true. You need a mentor, like you need someone whom you can rely on, you can constantly consult with. And for me personally, the one person that has been instrumental in giving me that motivation and showing me that the way is my second PhD mentor, Dr. Raquel Duarte from Wits. And actually the whole lab, there was a lady there called Therese. And I've actually enjoyed their unwavering support throughout my PhD, which it was like my second attempt, because the first one had issues. Most of you who've done their PhDs would know how supervisor-student relationships can just hit rock bottom, and in some instances get out of way that you even end up in psychiatric wards and all that. So with this second PhD that I undertook under Dr. Raquel Duarte's mentorship at Wits, I came out with a wealth of knowledge and a PhD, which is what I was looking for, and her support throughout the years. I remember when I went to do my first postdoc at UCT, she said to me, "Don't disappoint." And every time I did something there, her words just echoed in my head that don't disappoint, because I felt I was carrying her hopes. I was also there to represent whatever that I had acquired in her lab and bringing it to the forefront now. And even going abroad, like coming to Canada, for me, it was that I had that feeling that I still have to represent her well. All the training that I have acquired in that space and everything else, I still have to show that I come from this place. That's my identity. Because if I get here and I mess it up, they'll be like, "Oh, is this how South Africans are like?" It won't be a matter of Lerato being like this. It's a matter of, "Oh, South Africans are so incompetent. They don't even know what they're doing." So, and the one other person who was instrumental is Prof. Pakeng. I attended this talk while I was at UCT, and she said in one of the presentation I went to, getting a mentor, and it does not matter in what field, is very important in your career and in everything that you are going to do in life. And since then, I made sure that I keep in touch with my mentor, and I get even more people to mentor me, given the challenges and the time limitations that we have. And I can say I've got a handful of mentors whom I constantly consult with. And I've also took it upon myself to also give back by mentoring some young talents. And I am very proud to say some of my mentors are graduating. One graduated recently, and some are still grinding, but it's promising, it's looking good, it's giving me hope. And yeah, mentorship it's quite instrumental in one's trajectory.
Yeah, thank you to each of you for sharing your insights there, the trials and tribulations involved with it. But nonetheless, you know, that that guidance and that support is so important along the way as well. Dr. Lehutso, I saw you have a question. Is it to ask something to Dr. Mpie about this?
Yes, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question or actually make a comment, but I like the aspect where she mentions that I am not representing myself, but you are representing the whole continent. But my question is on how do you deal with the pressure that comes with that?
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, but I think I aim to do the best that I can do. Like I go out there and give it my all, because I do not want it to be a matter of oh yeah, it's maybe because of the lack of training, it's because of they do not have resources in Africa, that's why they like this. So when I go out there, I do as much research, I prepare myself thoroughly to take up the challenge. So I try and remain calm through all of this. And as I said, my first PhD was a fail, not on me being incompetent, it was just personality clashes. And with that, I'm like, if I could conquer that and still get out with a PhD after all of that, I can still face whatever challenge that I come across. And I make sure that I am thoroughly prepared for the challenges ahead. It's not easy, but yeah. And I meditate. So that also helps me to keep calm and keep my emotions in check.
All right. So thanks to each of you. So I think Dr. Mpie, in your presentation specifically, and now again through your reflections, you know, you have spoken about some of the challenges about that you face being sort of a South African scientist in a foreign country. Not only the pressures that comes with it, but also you spoke quite vividly about sort of almost being dropped in the deep end and having to swim and find your way around the lab. Can you tell us more about what that was like and sort of your approach to how you overcame this? And then I'll ask the other speakers a similar question around some challenges you faced about, you know, with being in settings that are quite different to our own.
Oh yeah, the challenge. Scientifically, we are doing good as South Africans. The teaching, the training that we get at home is globally competitive. Because I remember this, everyone talking about being globally competitive and all of that. And I can ascertain that we are indeed globally competitive, because when I first got back to the lab, my PI just said to me, here's the lab, here's the freezer, here's this, here's that. And then you will ask Kayla what we need to order, how we go about ordering and all of that. That was it. So I had to sit down, make a plan, draw up my schedule, find protocols, tweak some of the protocols that they had in the lab, use my knowledge from South Africa and do everything that I know has worked for me And I did not even get a single day whereby I had someone coming to me to say, oh yeah, this is the instrument that you need training on. No, they just showed me when I asked, okay, I need to do this assay. What equipment do you have? They would just walk me to where the equipment is, and that is the equipment. And I had to figure out how different this is from what I had used and all of that. But so far, nothing has been very different. It's the same thing. And I can actually even say, after working at MinTech, being an SOE, we had, in South Africa, we have some state-of-the-art equipment that's better than what they have in the first world countries. So we are not just wasting our time teaching science and training scientists in South Africa. We are indeed globally competitive. And I think what our policymakers and what the key role players can actually improve on is make the opportunities available for scientists that want to go out, that want to gain international experience and all that. I know there are opportunities, but given the number of graduates that we have and the hunger that South Africans have to go abroad, we do not have enough support for such. So the challenge now is back on our DSI, ASSAf, NRF, and everyone to make those opportunities available, support these curious minds that want to go out there, because you have given them the training, you have given them all the skills they need to survive out there, and they will survive.
That's excellent. Thank you also for reflecting on how our resources compare here versus there. I think that's really helpful for everyone to hear. Dr. Lehuzo and Dr. Kromhout, would you like to add perhaps you know, some of the challenges, maybe one or two challenges that you faced as well?
There are many challenges in research, and yeah, I can't count them. But my trick in addressing any challenge I encounter is not to drown alone. There is always someone who knows better than you and who's always willing to assist you in solving the challenge. So I always say, if you've got a challenge, approach someone. And the other thing is to tap in the networks of your mentor. That is also the quickest way to get help, by tapping into their networks. And actually, the internationally recognized scientists are pretty short, and they're always happy to help you solve your challenges. Like, we're taking them back to the lab, so it's no doubt that you're going to get assisted. So always go out to ask for help. Well, that's what I do. I don't drown alone in my challenges. I always go out to ask for help.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Kromhout.
So I'll just give some examples for me of what challenges I had when I was living in the UK. And so during my master's, just towards the end, there was the COVID pandemic, and that ended up meaning that I was unable to see my family for over a year. And while that seems okay, in the broader scope of things, one kind of discounts how important one's support system is. And I think what I would like to emphasize here is building up important support systems where you are. And I was lucky enough, through the scholarship that I got and through my classmates and my mentors, I had an incredible support system in the UK. So I was able to lean on those people when I was missing home, because as we know, there really is no place like home. And South Africa is an incredible and special place. But during that time, I had this incredible support network. And I think when you're approaching these opportunities, you need to have that in mind, and make the effort during the good times, so that when the bad times possibly hit, you have that support network to fall back on and consult. And yeah, so I think that's something that one kind of needs to keep in mind when approaching these opportunities. And it really helped me during my challenges of living abroad.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you to each of you for sharing. I am mindful of time, and I know that we need to revert back to one question. I'm also aware of a colleague of ours who would like to pose a question. So perhaps, Kolani, we can have the question from you, and then Dr. Lehuto, we can perhaps revert to the research-based question that was asked. And yeah, for that question, if I can ask that if there's many details, perhaps we can also sort of go offline between you and the participants to elaborate more if need be. Kalani, are you there? Would you like to unmute and ask the question? Oh, there is.
Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Colin Biza from the Academy of Science of South Africa. I'm a program officer there. I just want to reflect on something that has been a challenge in research, more especially with the management of grants and so forth. So, like I've indicated, South Africa is a home to many emerging researchers and young scientists from other African countries, and there's quite a number of funding opportunities that are available for them from the National Research Foundation, TRUST, OST, fellowships, and so many more. But then we seem to be struggling in attracting our own young scientists or emerging researchers to go work in or partner with other African universities, or to go out of South Africa to do some sort of projects and partnerships and collaborations in research in the continent. So I just want to check from you, from your experiences, what do you think could be the biggest challenge from the young scientist side or the researcher side? And what is it that can be done, or how can it be addressed for the future? Because definitely we do need the experiences from other African countries in terms of the collaborations that we need to do for the continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kalani. Dr. Lehuto, let me hand over to you, and then perhaps you can speak to Kalani's question and also about the previous question that you received from the audience member.
Okay. I think what can be done to enhance the collaboration in Africa is to have grant calls that specifically target that. If you check on the NRF call, most of the collaboration calls are mostly from South Africa and Eastern European countries. So maybe if there is another call that targets between African countries, that can alleviate that. For myself, I haven't collaborated with any African countries, and I think the main reason is that the field that I'm working in is still relatively new. So yeah, I don't have any reason, but yeah, I think even also the issue of the funds is that it's almost from Western countries that are the ones who are calling for collaborations.
Okay. And the question from the previous audience member pertaining to your research, would you like to address that here?
Not on a public platform, definitely not, but I can take it offline.
Perfect. So if I could ask our participant Clau, if perhaps you can share emails and then have a further discussion around that. All right, perfect. So colleagues, in the interest of time, I'm going to for now draw the discussion to an end, and I'm going to say once again, thank you very much to our speakers for sharing your insights about your work, but also about your experiences in terms of being abroad, internationalization, collaboration, some of the challenges and successes around that, which I think have been and will be very helpful to those who've been listening here this afternoon. So from my side as well, thank you everyone, and I would like to now hand over back to Dr. Twala.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kuti and the panel, for such a lovely and engaging session. I had really never contextualized to that extent the responsibility that the young scientists actually carry, trying to shake off, that imposter syndrome themselves, but you're carrying, the expectations from your mentors and supervisors, as well as your institution. I think it's really a heavy responsibility, but I'm pleased to see that our panel is able to steer through those challenges with excellency. And I can imagine that the biggest fear is actually not to embarrass your parents. We know how good South African mothers are with that wooden spoon. So whatever you do there, on international fort, your mom is waiting for you and she will deal with you. But thanks a lot, all of you, for your lovely contributions. I would like now just to hand back to an item that we had actually skipped earlier. That is the DSI item. I would like to welcome and introduce Ms. Mampei Chaba, who's the Chief Director for Multilateral Cooperation and Africa. And I would like to apologize that her name shows her as Florence Lehutso. She is not Florence Lehutso. It's because of the sharing of the links that happened earlier on. Mampei, over to you, and thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Dr. Twala, and thank you for inviting me, Dr. Tozama, to this event. My apologies for joining a little bit late. I am also trying to multitask, as you can see, but that's just in the nature of our work. I listened with interest to all the three young ladies. You are making us so proud. That for us as the DSI is what we'd like to see more of. So to you, Dr. Lehutso, Dr. Cromwell, and Dr. Mpie, stand proud, stand tall, represent South Africa, represent Africa. We are behind you all the way. So within the government system of South Africa, across all government departments, there are three main challenges that we are trying to address: unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And we think the scourge of poverty is really taking our country down. So we have a multi-pronged approach on how to address a lot of these challenges. But for today, I'd like to talk a little bit about unemployment. I understand that we have over 800,000 unemployed graduates in South Africa. So these are not people who are not skilled. These are people who have passed the matric enough to get a university entrance pass. They've gone to university, they qualified, and go back home and sit idle because of lack of job opportunities. This is such a sad situation, and we're trying to address that as government. And in the DSI, one of the areas that we thought we could address this challenge is to try to provide international exposure to our graduates. Chapter 9 of our decadal plan, we have what we call a Science, Technology and Innovation 2019 decadal plan, and chapter 9 of that plan is specifically addressing issues of internationalization. We believe that a lot of our graduates don't have international experience. They have studied and have been groomed in South Africa, but lack international exposure, both in the continent and outside the continent, so that upon their return in South Africa, or they can be more relevant, more competitive, understand things at the global level, but also leave a footprint where they do their postdocs or their research in of South Africa, and encourage more collaborations even upon their return. So as a result of this chapter, we have a number of indicators in our decadal plan that speak of increasing participation of the youth in international programs, increase the number of SMMEs of the youth and innovators under 30, and so on. So we've got a lot of targets that we've set for ourselves that we'd like to meet, and we do this through a number of programs, and I'll just mention a few. So one, we have what we call an Africa Mobility Program. The EU, the German scholarship fund that I think some of you might know that, have come forward and put up this program that provides full scholarship, full tuition, and travel costs for any South African potential master student or aspiring masters or PhD student to study anywhere in the continent free of charge, all costs paid. And we've posted this call 2 years in a row. And guess how many applications we have received? 0. 0. So the opportunities are there, but perhaps it's how we market the opportunities, where we post these opportunities, that they're not seen by the people we want to get these international opportunities. We have gone to universities and done information sessions, and we understand the competition between local universities who want to retain the brightest minds, but we also need young people like yourselves to go study in the continent. So we've also been on radio stations trying to promote this opportunity. And a colleague of mine who, I'm not sure if she's connected yet, Mendri Nchani, runs this program. She will leave her details and share with you when a date has been set for the next info session. It should be around July next month, so that we get as many people as possible exposed to these opportunities and go into the continent and apply for such opportunities. We also have Pan-African Universities program. There are currently 5 Pan-African universities in the continent, and the quota has been set for Southern African, including South African students. And we have never met our quota. We always have much fewer students in those universities. We have got a university on water and energy in Algeria Powers. We've got one on STI disciplines in Nairobi. We've got one on humanities and social sciences in Cameroon, and so on. So those opportunities are available, but are never taken up, and we're not sure why. So I'd like, with your support, with your interest, to go into the opportunities that you offer by writing to Mendri Ntani. I will also leave her contact details if she's not connected, so that you can write to her. Last but not least, we have what we call, it's not the last one, so the second last, the University Twinning Program, which allows researchers, already established researchers at university level, to engage with other universities across the continent. And this allows for joint funding of research programs, but also allows for student exchange programs. So under these researchers, if there are opportunities for spending 6 months in a university in Uganda or Egypt or Kenya, that opportunity is there. So we will also leave contact. Mendri can share with you contacts of when and how to access those opportunities. And then last but not least, we also provide opportunities for innovators. So young people that have received some funding and have gone up to prototype stage, and have got something that they have thought about, they have researched, and it's in a prototype or demonstration level. We offer opportunities for showcasing their work in international platforms. We took a group of young female researchers to New York 2 months ago. Would like to take another group to the UNGA, UN General Assembly Science Summit taking place in September. But we want them to be relevant to SDGs, to be aware of the South African context. But the opportunity they get when they meet the private sector, potential investors out in multilateral bodies is immense. They've come back, some are continuing to get advice, highly sought after advice on how to improve their innovations from the partnerships they have made. Some are getting core investments, some are getting access to markets through these opportunities. We also offer opportunities for participating in what we call innovation weeks in the continent, in Tanzania, in Kenya, and so on. And the opportunity there is to have your innovation deployed in Africa. So if you are interested, please write to my colleague Mendri Ntani. And I think lastly, though, I have seen the comments, we do need to partner with SAIS. Brownwin, you and I need to talk on how we market these opportunities through SAIS. Perhaps other platforms that we've been using are not the right platforms, and I'd like to take the challenge. I think someone in the chat said SAIS need to do something about this. So between DSI and SAIS, let's form a partnership and see where this will take us. With that, then I'd like to thank you, Dr. Twala, Dr. Tozama, and you, Brownwin, And thank you for your patience. Apologies again for joining late. Thank you so much. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you very much. And SAIS is certainly interested in having those conversations. And on that note, I would like to hand over to the SAIS co-chair, Professor Tashri Marimutu, who's also on the call this afternoon to provide us with the concluding remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And obviously, what an amazing set of speakers and everything that's resonating very well with what SAIS is actually looking into currently. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's really my great pleasure to address you all today as we conclude this insightful webinar. I don't want to speak too much, but while we were looking at the webinar, basically, I was preparing just a summary of what was happening and how the conversation was stemming from provisioning, supporting, sustaining, to actually getting us to internalization of STI by the youth. And if you look at the first objective that I wanted to look at, it's actually engaging the youth. And I think one of our speakers, Dr. Lerato Impe, also focused on how the youth can play a vital role in actually advancing this goal. And in her context, I wrote down many points. It was through transdisciplinary research, collaboration between hospitals, clinicians, and various stakeholders and scientists. In addition to that, it was also having this ability to want to always practice lifelong learning. And that really helped her to not only develop human capital, but also to be an advocate for science and engineering and technology. And I think one of the ways in which we can actually engage the youth, as Dr. Impe pointed out, would be entrepreneurship and getting them to actually, take their research to society. Then if we go to our next speaker, and that was Dr. Lehutsa. In her presentation, she explored the significance of youth engagement in the internationalization of STIs to address water and sanitation issues. And I know that right now, determining pharmaceuticals and other contaminants in water is such an important topic, but the fact that she can present this in an accessible and package it in such a voice that can really resonate with the sustainability and development goals, I really think that she is a voice that we really need to be there. Rather than only having marketing that's targeting an audience in the sense that the pedagogy is just, the teacher on the stage. I think we need to get more young doctors and postdoc students like Dr. Lehutsa to actually create a more dynamic and interactive session where youth can actually see how they can contribute to this and how, for example, taking up the opportunities that you spoke about, conferences, Pan-African collaborations, participating in competitions. A whole lot of opportunities exist, but we need the youth to engage and we need them to activate in order for them to develop and globally contribute. And then lastly, but not least, we had Dr. Gabriela Kromhout that also presented on good wealth and well-being. And I think what was very key to her presentation, very thought-provoking as well, linking pharmacokinetics to dosage, to looking at the pediatric population. But the most important part of her contribution was her potential impact on advancing sustainable goals in communities in South Africa and beyond. Her research is definitely something that the youth could look as a practical example of how impact starts today but lasts forever. So I'd really like to conclude and express my sincere appreciation to Dr. Lerato Impe, Dr. Lehutsa, and Dr. Gabrielle Kromhout for sharing their research in these critical areas. I think your presentations definitely provided vital insights and highlighted an immense potential of youth engagement in advancing sustainable development goals. And I will definitely be sending you, from a SAIS point of view, invites for you to also share in your insights when we have our SCIS webinars and conferences. I'd also like to thank all the participants who joined in today. And I really think that, webinar is just as successful as the enriching experience that you create. So in conclusion, let us take these inspirations gained from today's discussion and channel them into actionable actions. By really empowering and involving the youth in the internalization of South African science, technology, and innovation, we can collectively work towards achieving the SDG goals, particularly in the areas of good health and well-being, clean water, and sanitation. So thank you again from my perspective. Let us continue to foster collaboration, drive innovation, and empower the youth to create a more sustainable and prosperous future for us all. Thank you from my side and from SCIS.
Thanks a lot, Prof. Tashrede, for your concluding remarks. This was really a lovely session that we had. Apologies for the tech glitches that we experienced there and there. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings to the end our session today. Thank you all for participating. I hope also this session enabled for some people to create contacts and reach out. We hope that there will be some cooperation between the attendees that would have been cemented from this session. Thank you all. We appreciate your support and goodbye.